But it's funny, I was looking through before Ann ran this, and I said, let me throw in that parks transfer real quick.
Kyle, do you want to check to see if Kenji's ready to go?
Oh, the mics are on.
Oh, for real? I did not know that. No, where does he live?
So you know where Penguin is? This street
Just turn yours on.
goes to the right into that confusing neighborhood you get lost in if you jog through.
Good evening. It's 5:30 on Tuesday, August 27th, and it's my pleasure to call this meeting to order for the Oshtemo Charter Township Regular Board Meeting. And at this time, I'm moving to item 2, the call for remote location identification. Seeing that we have all trustees present, there is no need for remote location identification. So I welcome you all to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to invite a member of this body to read a portion of the township mission, vision, and core values, please.
Transparent governmental policy practices are of the highest priority. Integrity.
Thank you, Trustee Chapman. You got me there for a second. I had to go back to the beginning.
I forgot to say that.
That's okay. Next, we'll move to item number 5, which is public comment on non-regular session items. I see no members of the public before me. Kyle, thank you for filling in for IT Director John Gibson this evening. Do you have anyone on Zoom with their hand raised? Okay. We'll give it 1 second, just in case.
Is that John Pumpkin?
Any change in that, Kyle? Seeing none, then I will close public comment and move to item number 6, public official updates. Seeing no member of a public body here to provide an update. Kyle, do we have anyone on Zoom with their hand raised? Seeing none, I will close public official updates, item 6. And next, invite our HR Director, Sarah, to present to the board the 2024 milestone anniversary recognitions.
As a reminder, annually we recognize milestone anniversaries, employment anniversaries of the township, starting at 5 years and beyond in 5-year increments. So this year in 2024, we do have 4 milestone anniversaries. The first one I'd like to recognize is Scott Fuller. Scott Fuller has been employed 10 years as of 2024. Scott currently is the captain of community risk reduction, but Scott Fuller started here at Oshtemo 10 years ago as a resident intern. After he completed his year of resident intern, he moved to paid on call. After that, he was hired as a full-time firefighter, and he was just promoted in 2024 to the brand new position, Captain of Community Risk Reduction, working closely with our Assistant Chief and Fire Marshal Jim Wiley. So congratulations to Scott Fuller for 10 years of service. Next, our Maintenance Director, Greg Fountain, is celebrating 5 years of service. Greg Fountain started in the Maintenance Department 5 years ago as a general maintenance employee under Rick Everett. And when Rick Everett retired, Greg assumed the Maintenance Director position. I think I speak for everybody when I say that there's not one department that doesn't work closely with maintenance, and we're lucky to have Greg in place because he is very on top of what is going on in the township. So big thank you to Greg and congratulations on 5 years. Next, Melissa Rugg is celebrating 5 years in 2024. Melissa is currently the assistant clerk. Melissa started here 5 years ago in the fire department as a part-time administrative assistant, and she has been in the clerk's department for about 3 years now. In her time with the fire department, she made a lot of meaningful changes as far as their administrative functions go, and also in the clerk's department. I think I can speak for Dusty when I say she's been an integral part of that department, and very, very lucky to have her in place and her longevity. And then finally, we have Colton Hudson celebrating 5 years in 2024. Colton is our zoning administrator, one of 2 zoning administrators, and Colton is currently the longest standing employee in the planning department, which means that he has helped to onboard our new planning director, Jody, and we're very lucky to have his service to the township in that transition as well. So all 4 of them, thank you so much for your many years, and we're looking forward to many more. I do have certificates that they will be presented with, look like this, that highlight their years of service. So big thank you to them.
Thank you, Sarah, and thanks for all the staff that are being recognized tonight for their years of service. Pretty remarkable. Next, Sarah will continue on item number 8 and present the August 2024 Employee Spotlight.
Thanks, Sherry. So this is our second employee spotlight. We did our first in July, and the goal of this is to highlight the great work that's being done within the township. As this board, you're not full-time in the office, so sometimes you might not get to see the day-to-day operations of how it's running. So we just want to take some time out of a board meeting every month and recognize that work that's being done and spotlight the employees that are contributing to the success, I guess, of Oshtemo Township. So Sally Higgins is the assistant to the treasurer. Sally was hired in April of 2022. I'd like to read this aloud about Sally. She has been a resident of Oshtemo Township for over 30 years. Her husband and her have raised both of their daughters here and enjoyed the parks and trails as they were growing up. They both graduated from college now, and the oldest is living in Atlanta, Georgia, working as a nurse. The younger daughter is back in Kalamazoo working for the Civic Theater. In Sally's time away from the office, she likes to volunteer for the Animal Rescue Project, putting her accounting skills to work, helping with their bookkeeping. She keeps busy fostering the occasional dog or puppy for the Heart of Michigan Bernese Mountain Dog Rescue. Her most recent is a 10-week-old Bernese Husky puppy mix. He's very cute, but you forget how much work puppies are. I can speak for that. They have 2 dogs of their own, Kennedy, a 10-year-old Bernese Mountain Dog, and Reagan, a 1.5-year-old Golden Retriever, and she called them foster fails, and I had to clarify what that meant. So a foster fail is when you take in a dog to foster, and then you decide to keep the dog. So it's really not a fail, it's a success. Sally and her husband travel a lot in both the United States and internationally as time allows. As the treasurer's assistant and the deputy treasurer, Sally verifies and posts the payments for taxes and other miscellaneous checks that come into the township. She manages the Greenleaf and MERS monetary contributions, and Sally efficiently runs the facility rental program. Additionally, Sally provides customer service duties for the front desk visitors and callers as needed. That's just a short summary of her duties. And then why are we celebrating Sally? Sally is a true asset to the township. She is highly organized, a go-getter, and there is nothing she won't tackle. She constantly looks for ways to improve processes. One of these improvements includes the facility rental program. Sally received a peer recognition certificate in June 2024 for her outstanding work regarding the rental program. Her organizational and customer service skills have ensured that the program continues to run smoothly. Sally brings well-developed logic and reasoning to the challenges faced at both the front counter and within the treasurer's office, and is a critical component to the high level of professionalism in both. Her dedication to ensuring that we provide quality service to our constituents has shaped the way we deliver those services every day. As the township has grown, her work has become even more important in providing continuity to her colleagues and the residents. She is highly valued in the treasurer's office, as well as every other department that has the pleasure of working with Sally, and we look forward to her future with us. So big thank you to Sally for everything that she does around the township for us.
Thank you, Sarah, for preparing that. Thank you, Sally. Sally works directly for the treasurer. I wondered if Claire had anything she wanted to add?
I do not, other than Sally would have liked to have been here this evening, but she is an avid golfer, and today is the last golfing day, along with a potluck, and she couldn't pass, and I was torn between the two, but went with the other.
I understand. We'll see how many holes they get in this evening. It's looking pretty cruddy outside right now. All right, well, thank you, Sarah, for preparing those. Thanks to the township staff who do the hard work every day to keep the township rolling. You've heard time and time again the high level of excellence that we have staff here at the township. And bringing this forward to recognize them formally, I think is an important part of making sure people know that their work is appreciated by the township board. Next, I'll move to item number 9, the consent agenda, which consists of the meeting minutes from August 13th and August 20th, July and August peer recognition, certificates of recognition. We do have some budget amendments, the receipts and disbursements, and the DDA bylaw amendments. Is there any member of this body wishing to remove an item from the consent agenda?
Yes, I'd like to remove item C, the budget amendments, and also item E, the DDA bylaw amendments,
Okay,
please.
we will add items C and E after item 12.
I move to approve consent agenda items A, B, and D.
Support?
Pardon me, I have a motion, I believe by trustee Ford, second by trustee Cole. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next, we'll move into item number 10, which is continued discussion of the 2025 draft budget. In front of you, you have a new draft budget to continue our discussion. I'd like to offer the opportunity, since we have Planning Director Stefora with us, Jody, if you'd like to come to the podium, maybe walk through your budget. If there's anything you want to highlight as a part of that, we'll do you first. And you'll find the Planning Department budget beginning on page 22 of your blue line budget.
Items for planning department would be to continue working on the master plan and all the elements we've yet to really tackle with transportation, the regulating plan for that, non-motorized, finishing up the market study and some zoning updates and all the other good things that come with the master plan. So the 180 is what's left on the contract that was signed last year, and we're making good progress towards this year. The next item, recorder of minutes, that is subcontracted out to a young lady who does the minutes for Planning Commission and Zoning Board of Appeals. We do SOTA and DDA minutes in-house, but the Planning Department is responsible for the minutes of 4 boards, and 2 of them are used or farmed out to a contractor. She's doing a great job on them so far. I think she's been helping since May. And we'll keep her around next year. So this 10,000 is worst case. It's not worst case scenario if the boards meet every month as they're scheduled to be. So I don't mean that. It just means if nothing gets canceled, that would be the most we would spend. The next item, general planning project consulting. This 20,000, we probably won't get near that, but that would be projects we send out because we don't have the capacity. Before I came back in March, we were sending out landscape plans to OCBA for professional review and some of the site plans because the zoning administrators just didn't have the capacity to review site plans and handle every phone inquiry and review every building permit and other site plans they were looking at. So in the event that things big come up that we need to send out, those are paid out of that. When those invoices come in, they're paid out of that line item. And escrows that applicants provide to us. And I anticipate maybe some of this these planning fees, right now they go out for engineering review on occasion, and that should be lessened when we have our new township engineer starting next month. Ordinance amendments for 70,000, 50,000 of that will be paid for with the Housing Readiness Incentive Grant that we were awarded. And I hope for that to be work studying housing. Obviously, it's a housing readiness incentive grant. So look at where our ordinance could be modernized, maybe make things easier for developers or individual builders so that if things move faster, that's one cost they don't have to pass on to homeowners, and maybe we can shorten up our review process and maybe allow smaller homes or accessory dwelling units, just ordinance amendments towards that. The next item, digitization and organization of project files. I haven't made any progress on that in 2024. That $30,000 is the amount that was budgeted in 2024, so we just carried it forward. I'm not even sure really what that will entail, but I'll be getting with the clerk's office in short order to talk about that. We have an entire room of files, site plans,
We call those
records.
challenges.
We have a
The
whole room
full
of challenges. And then engineering fees, the last blue line item, that was a standalone GL number in prior years, and we're just suggesting to move it up into the blue line under consultants. And that
Oh, I see.
might be related to keeping our GIS current with updating water and sewer parcels. I know we're trying to bring the parcel updates in-house, but that GIS specialist might need some help outside at least that first year of updating those data layers on his own for the township. I could also talk about the soda and DDA budgets, or do you want to pause on planning?
If you would like to speak to those, I think that would be fine. You just want to express sort of the, where they're at in the process right
Yeah.
now.
Could I interrupt you quick before you go to those? Are we involved with the Regional Housing Partnership?
Yes.
Okay.
And they're having a big meeting on Tuesday.
Right, yeah.
In Lawrence. Are you attending?
No, I was at a meeting the other day, and we were talking about housing, and that came up, and I said, well, I don't know, maybe somebody from Oshtemo is going to it, I didn't know.
Yes, I am planning to go.
I had a quick question within the planning budget, a couple of them. You said $50,000 of that 70,000 that's budgeted is, that's going to be a reimbursement from the Housing Readiness Grant? Is that how that'll work?
Is that a warning? Okay. So I'm near the door. Well, actually, we should get 25,000 of it. Maybe you should lower that amount probably this year now that we've submitted the signed agreement. The way it goes is they give you the 50 or 25,000 up front, and then at the project end, you'll get the other half of the grant.
Okay, do you have any ideas for the remaining 20,000 there? What it
Oh, I
might
have
go-
ideas, yeah.
What it might go toward?
Well, our parking is excessive. I would like to see that updated, and I've told the planning department team, like, maybe we can start picking away at it this year, because it's starting to come up in projects where people want to use parking that was established decades ago, but the ordinance says they need it all, and you can look at aerials for 15 years, and there's been one vehicle there, and they were probably
And a lot of asphalt.
hiding from their spouse or something, I don't know. And also, the village commercial area, really, that zoning district is stagnating that area, and I know the DDA is on board with revisiting that and maybe gutting it, but that will come after the master plan's done. So our consultant team wants to pay special attention to that area.
Okay. And then, I might have a question by the time I'm done with this sentence. It's more of a comment, though. So that $30,000 for the digitization and organization of project files, I am not entirely confident I know how we would use that money, but I do support us carrying this over. This is a little different from Public Works. the amount of staff time that it's going to require to be able to organize these files so that we can properly get them into the repository. That has been the biggest, that's the real challenge. Because we can't just have a company do that for us, that piece of it. It has to be evaluated, or we hire somebody and teach them how to evaluate it, and
Yeah.
that's their temporary part-time job, or something like that. But it really is a challenge, because we can pay a company to do a number of things, the scanning and all that, but the actual, looking at it and making an evaluation about a document is a real challenge, even for Graphic Sciences, which is the company that there's a term for it. They didn't win the bid from the state, but they provided enough documents that they are one of the state, not endorsed, that's not the word, I'm just missing my word, preferred, thank you. Companies, and they have also helped identify those challenges, but I also, if we can figure out an opportunity to get this project done in one fell swoop, I really want to be able to have the resource there to do that, so. And that was it, that wasn't a question, it was a comment, there it was.
Well, it remains on my to-do list, it just doesn't get to the top
Well,
each
right,
week.
because,
Yeah.
no, I get it. I mean, you're brand new this year. We just said Colton's been the one in the planning department for the longest, and I adore Colton, but it's not been that long, that he's been here, so we have challenges that we're gonna,
Yeah.
a lot of other work to focus on.
Any other questions? And the salary line item, that includes 3 full-time staff, right? Three full-
Yes, and a portion of the administrative
Admin,
assistant.
okay.
Yep.
Okay. Your soda budget, the revenues are on page 55, the appropriations are on page 56 for the board.
So the revenues are graciously filled in by your treasurer, so direct questions about that to her. For expenditures, and I'll say with soda and DDA, those boards have not blessed these budgets yet. I'm going to present them when they meet next month. So these might change a little, but especially soda, they've got to work within their limits. So it's not like they're going to go crazy with projects. So what I anticipate for soda to spend funds on this coming year would be repairs and maintenance. That would be maybe more crosswalk work. We have to restripe them every other year, so if not more frequently. So we'll be refreshing all the markings that were put down last year along the Drake Road path and where it crosses streets and driveways. And maybe we can do something more. I read it in the minutes because I wasn't at this meeting, that one resident who lives in the area off of Green Meadow Drive, she felt motorists were being more respectful of the pedestrians because the crosswalks were striped, got their attention more. So it's all the more reason to keep those refreshed and see if there's anything else we can do to make pedestrian and bicyclists safer, more recognized. And then the other item for capital outlay obligated projects, that would be a contribution from the soda tax capture to the township for the Drake Road path. There was a memo of understanding in 2019 that said every year soda would pay back a certain amount, and then there was a kicker. And so in 2025, it goes up to $70,000. Now, I haven't run this by the DDA soda board yet, actually, because I meet in a couple weeks, but I'm going to suggest that they honor the full amount of the memo of understanding from 2019. There is a paragraph in the memo of understanding that said if other priorities come up or tax capture is such that you don't want to make that full amount, you can pay a lesser amount. So we'll see. And so in '24, they only budgeted $30,000, but the agreement says they would pay back $60,000 in 2024. So I'm going to ask them if they want to do a budget amendment to do the 60 for '24, and then how do they feel about the amount I'm proposing for 2025?
Thank you, Jody. And then, I didn't Oh, and actually, your Downtown Development Authority starts on page 57, and I'm
Yes.
assuming, yes, appropriations are on page 58.
For community events, it's the same couple of events the DDA has been a sponsor for in years past, which is the tree lighting ceremony and music in the park. For consultants, continuing to be a partner on the Atlantic Avenue road design and engineering expenses. And the next one down, traffic consultant for road design, Parkview Millards, I'm gonna suggest that be changed to say and/or Erie Atlantic. There's opportunity to use consultants to see how Erie and Atlantic could come together better. And/or how traffic's gonna go when Parkview ends. We don't want people cutting through LaRue, so, I mean, is there a way on township property there we can get people to Millard's Way? And then down to Atlantic. So to study that with some professional help and maybe identifying some funding sources for that is what we're suggesting as a project in 2025. And those zoning amendments would be the village commercial district changes with the planning commission. I haven't run those by the DDA, but my sense from attending one of their meetings is that they support an update to the provisions. They would like to see more development happening down there. Under repairs and maintenance, continue to budget for rotating the banners that go up on the poles. And I'm also proposing under outdoor decorations that we buy more banners and refresh the ones that are faded. I think there's a lot of poles where we could put a second banner and that has much more of an impact to the pedestrian, bicyclist, and motorist than just a single banner. Lawn care and maintenance, continuing to budget for that. Then snow removal on Stadium and Millard's Way, continue to budget for that. And then property maintenance, 6227 Stadium Drive, maintaining that property is going to become the township's responsibility in March or May of next year, so that will require some mowing and other maintenance work. What you see down under capital outlay, I do have the demolition of those buildings on the property. A group of us met out there with a demolition contractor 2 weeks ago and walked around. Fire department's definitely planning to do some training in the house and the kennel building. Probably going to put a bunch of stuffed animals in the kennel and go in and time themselves rescuing them. I'm not telling them how to do their drills, but that's just a
I
suggestion.
assume that's how they do their drills, so that's
It's better than going to Animal Rescue Project and getting a bunch of foster puppies. No,
that's very much better.
it is better.
They didn't do that.
Okay, and then continuing to offer the facade improvement grant program. The DDA is expanding what that's eligible for. If you're going to replace a non-conforming sign with a conforming sign, a business owner would be eligible for a grant for that. Or if they wanted to do landscaping along the right-of-way, the DDA would be interested in partnering on that with a facade improvement grant. And they feel really positively, even these little projects would boost the appearance of these commercial properties from the street and the relationship with the business owners in the DDA area. And I think it's the last one. Yep. 9th Street sidewalk, Meridian to Stadium on the east side. I don't know if it'll be possible. We're thinking about partnering with the Townships project where sidewalk will be on the west side in that area. And since we have a neighborhood that's going in north of Meridian where it intersects with 9th Street, we thought that might be a good segment to include if the stars align and we're able to construct that. Because a big fee for a small project like that would be just mobilization. So if we can tack it on to the Townships project on the other side of the road, that would be fantastic. And I pulled that number out of the air, so I don't know how the Public Works Director feels about that amount. She's nodding, so that's good.
She supports it.
I guess there is, a couple other blue line items. The annual payment for the Stadium Drive purchase, 6227 Stadium, and then having money in the budget in case an acquisition opportunity appears. Which they had that line item for many years, so apparently it's been useful because we did acquire that one property.
And DDA meets in September as well.
Yes.
The members have not seen this yet.
They saw a draft in
Okay.
July, but they did not take action.
But I don't foresee a whole lot more work. I mean, there might be
Right.
some tweaks, but
Right.
I think what's possible is in here. Okay, does anyone have any questions for Director Stoforia? Okay,
Okay, thank you.
thanks, Jody.
Good evening.
Oh,
Good evening. I'm a relatively new resident to Oshtemo and interested in very much all my government. I've been a,
hold on, Mr.
Government
Marr.
affairs professional.
Mr. Marr.
yeah, I'm sorry, I apologize. I'm out of order. I apologize.
Okay, do you want to, I guess, hold on, let me think about order here. We don't call for public.
I apologize. I
No,
apologize.
we'll have public comment.
There,
again at
there
the-
will be public comment for you to participate at the end of the agenda.
Thank you very much.
Yep, you're welcome. Thanks for being present. Okay, so my commitment tonight, as I discussed, I think at the last meeting, is that we're going to be doing discussions of the Blue Line budget for the next several meetings, so it is not my anticipation that we are going to plow through all of the remaining. And so I talked to Dusty today while we were hammering through a few things, and I think we thought maybe the best way to start is just at the top of the 101. And so if you go to, page 1 is going to be the revenue side. So beginning with appropriations, Department 101 is the trustee salary line item. I don't see any, oh, and one thing before we get too far down the road is Ann did not, at my direction, did not recreate the header for every page. So column 1 is 2023, column 2 is 2024, and column 1 is 2023, column 2 is 2024, and column 3 is 2025 requested. Okay, so that's the same across the pages, so if you're comparing numbers. So you'll see, for example, on trustee salaries, there was no change to that, and then clerk farmer, what was it that you spoke about regarding that salary line item?
Well, we did not increase the trustee salary last year. We were going to get clarification as to whether or not the trustee positions were included in the Siegel survey. But if not, I think that we already have some information about local trustees, well, across the state, actually, salaries for trustees. But we haven't had that conversation in a couple of years, so if the trustees want to have that conversation, we should. Or even restructuring how we pay trustees.
Yeah, I would say the only thing I want to talk about with regard to trustee pay is how we account for our time and perhaps how we're paying it, but not necessarily changing the payment amount. As we've made the switch to ADP, that platform seems real interested in recording hours. We don't really work by the hour, we work kind of by per diem, half day, long, full day type thing. I'd like to have some more, at least standardization around how we're recording that. That might just be something to talk to Sarah about, but.
Okay.
Yeah, so right now, We also need to update the trustee compensation policy. I read that today and it's from 2010. And it does not apply to anything that we're doing.
Fair enough.
Or have been doing. So trustees are paid a base stipend, and that is divvied up over 26 pay periods, if it's not a leap year. And in addition to that, trustees are paid $130 per board meeting attended, and $130 for committee meetings if they're over 4 hours, and $65 if they're under 4 hours. We can change any and all of that. It's entirely up to this board, but that's how it's currently structured.
And that's fine and makes sense. It just is hard to account for in the system that we're doing it with now. So I guess, I don't know that it needs to be policy, but like an understanding of how I'm supposed to enter it. Like a 1 means it was a less than 4 hour committee meeting, a 2 means it was a, you know, it's going in a
Yeah.
box that's expecting hours, but.
Yeah, Sarah will have to manage that in ADP for sure.
And then like, she's also managing board meetings or not board meetings versus, like, am I only reporting my committee stuff that she might not
So
know
on that
about?
current form you guys have, I report your board meetings.
Okay,
So you guys are just reporting your committee meetings beyond that, and then your stipend is what it is.
yeah, that's all built in, okay. Okay.
But again, you know, that's not really, that's not policy or anything, so we can, you know, Sarah can work with.
Yeah, so I guess, didn't mean to make that into a long thing, but I'm
No, it's good
comfortable
feedback.
with the salary levels for the trustees at this time.
Oh, that was the moral of
That was the
story.
more
Got it.
important part of that conversation, I'm sorry.
Any other comments?
It's an uncomfortable conversation, but I will say this, we have to talk about compensation of elected officials, and that compensation needs to reflect the amount of work that's done. It's important that we pay people for their time. The conversation has nothing to do with the people who are currently sitting in those seats. Because when we set it in October, that is the baseline for it moving through the next 4 years. Salary cannot be reduced from whatever we set it at. It can be increased after that time, though. And so I want the trustees to keep that in mind. And it's uncomfortable. It's a very uncomfortable conversation. We have it every year. We usually only have it in November when we're going to make the resolution. It is uncomfortable, but it's a very important conversation because we're also not expecting people to do the amount of work that we do in a growing community for free. That's not a fair way to treat anyone who would be doing work for the township, especially the trustees who have been elected by the township. So that is my opinion on that. I'm open to any conversation. I really would like that we, you know, don't move through this process and have zero conversation about it, though, because everybody must have opinions. And again, we can provide numbers about what other people or what other boards are paying their trustees, but I do want to have it at some point, if not tonight.
I'm curious about those numbers, if they could be shared for review or look at, or,
Like the comparison numbers? When were those taken?
Really on a rolling basis over the last couple of years.
Okay, because I remember doing that prior to the last time we adjusted the compensation. which
Yes.
was
And they've been,
probably
they've all been
4 years
updated
or
since
whatever.
then.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so then that would definitely be worthwhile information to have.
So the
Yes.
MTA does have some information around compensation
Okay.
for elected officials. I know that's one place Sarah would start.
Sure.
I don't know if there's anything in the Siegel study. I don't remember if there's anything related to trustees or not.
And we've participated in, I think, 3 surveys over the last 2 years. So then in turn, we received that information back.
And a lot of it is public information, so I could see Sarah just frankly
Finding.
Googling some relevantly sized communities, or just picking up the phone and calling. I mean, she has a really good network of other HR professionals, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, we can bring back some comparison information.
I have a question, and this is something I've struggled with during these conversations in the past about compensation for anybody in the township that we have to set. When we look at our budget, we look at a bucket of salaries for a department, or, you know, maybe part of the public works salary comes from one fund and another. It's hard for me as a trustee, when we're having these conversations, to think about the big bucket of salaries versus the individual salaries for people performing roles. And
Yeah,
I'm
we
wondering-
haven't typically looked at those as a board.
Right, and it's not like I'm interested in what individuals are making, but how do we talk about it in a way that makes more sense? Because a clerk's salary bucket might be a big number, but there's a clerk that makes X and some assistants that make
Two, yeah.
Y, and I think that's information that's important for us to understand down at that level, not just at this 30,000-foot view of the
Well,
of the
that'll
salaries.
make sense when we bring the information from the Siegel study forward to the board. So I think that so the policy from, generally speaking, previously, under the previous supervisor, was kind of hit the middle target for salaries for the township staff.
Sure.
Right? So the Siegel study, in part, is to let us know where we are and are not hitting
Yeah.
that target. We can certainly probably group types of employees without sort of calling people out specifically. And I already spoke to Sarah today, and the HR budget will be probably the last budget we'll discuss.
Okay.
Because she's still getting, not only she's still she's waiting for more information from Siegel, and we also don't have all the insurance information yet. So the HR numbers are not, are probably among the least accurate as far, I mean, they're in the ballpark, like, they're just
Sure.
not. But if there's going to be changes, that will be where we'll see changes.
Okay.
But I can certainly let Sarah know that we need to be prepared to talk about salary by types or
Yeah,
groups
and
or-
what I'm mostly interested in are being able to have real conversations about salary for key executive type roles, like an elected official, an attorney, an engineer, that kind of level of stuff. That's what I think is important to the township board, to make sure that we're setting those professional rates at the right level, that we can attract and retain talent.
All right, thanks, Zach. Any other conversation on trustee, the appropriations for trustees?
Plus you.
Kyle?
I just wanted to say, I checked on the Siegel study and confirmed that trustees were not included.
Oh, they're not, okay. Then we'll need to add that to Sarah's to-do list. Okay, next page is the supervisor's office. So what I think with regard to salaries, why that number is so much larger than the previous year is that it includes the supervisor's salary, a portion of the front desk admin, a portion of the Public Works Planning and Supervisor admin. It includes media and communications. Additionally, I asked Sarah to add a salary for a finance director and a community development director. Whether or not one or both of those stay in this budget will be determined as we get further into the process and get closer to budgeting for new positions. So in 2024, that includes the supervisor, portions of two administrative assistants that serve multiple offices, and the media and communications position. So it will go from,
And the HR director.
is she in the supervisors?
This is the part that I was getting to about the confusion. So salaries would be fine. If you could blue line it, I don't care if you put the individual number, just put them on a line so we know what roles are
I
covered.
don't know if blue lining it is a good way to do that, but we could have a separate document, because Sarah has all this information. It's not like it's unknown. You know what I mean? Like, she's
Yeah.
got it all.
Sure.
If she can pull it very quickly, she can just run a report from ADP, you know. So those numbers are known. Maybe that would be a more appropriate way to share.
And we can share the percentages. So, for example, administrative support for the front desk from the supervisor's budget reflects, I believe, 20% of that individual's salary.
I understand. I'm not
Okay.
interested in the individual salaries, just if you had a green line that was just the name of the role underneath it, so I know there's these 12 roles and it was 600,000.
Right.
No, I think that's my point. It's not that we don't want the information in the budget, it's that to add it, it's gonna change our balances. Like, we import information from from Sarah's software, and it sets it, and like, we can't change that information afterwards. She can write over it
Okay.
with the software, but to be able to add individual lines for green, or for like the blue line or whatever, we are not gonna have that capability. It would have to be done all manually, which would sort of negate the reason for paying for that software. But again, like having the separate document, she could show that, it just wouldn't be incorporated in.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That would be
Okay.
helpful.
Okay. Any other questions? So the biggest change here is if we add 2 professional positions this year, which would be the finance director and a community development director. So my process of doing this is put everything in and then chip away at what isn't possible in this current budget year. So that is part of what's reflected. Clerk Farmer? Page 5.
I mean, that's what it is. The only thing that, we have on our HR board work group, one of our agendas, is I want to have a discussion about deputy stipends and those amounts, and see how that interacts with any of the Siegel information that we receive.
Like, what
So we
deputy
have,
roles?
so by law, the state of Michigan requires that the clerk and the treasurer have deputies. And that's because we legally need somebody to take over some
I
of the
gotcha.
statutory
Okay.
work that we're doing. And then we also, by state law, the supervisor may have a deputy. And
Right.
so all 3 of us have deputies, and all 3 of those deputies are getting paid the exact same stipend. And I would like to have a discussion about that.
That makes sense. Got it.
And that's the only change that would happen to this page, would be after that discussion. Cool.
Okay, thank you. Next, Department 223, Finance and Legal. Now, accounting and audit fees make sense to me for the finance part. What is the legal on that? Because this really doesn't seem to have any,
Well, we've moved some things out of this over the years. Hold on, I'm gonna pull it up.
I just think the title might need to be changed.
And we can absolutely do that. There was something about, something we took out of this that we ended up combining that name. I don't remember the history there.
Okay.
But I can tell you that, well, I can look up the history on that. So we used to have under, it doesn't matter because there was a change of chart of accounts. It would take me much longer to find that information. We can change that to whatever you guys want it to.
I just think it doesn't accurately reflect if there's no legal expenses posted against that line, that the title needs to change.
To just finance?
Finance and accounting?
I'm not even sure why we have to have this as the separate department, so we could
All
really
right.
change it, but at the very least, I can change that department number.
Well, and if we get a finance director, will the salary ultimately go in there? Like,
It
I mean,
could.
It's, yeah, so, I just think that legal, I was like, why is legal in there?
Yeah.
So, anyway. If we didn't make that muddy enough for the board, were there any questions on that?
So this is the line that has our monthly accounting and audit fees and our annual
Yeah, so it's.
third-party audit.
Seabertans and.
Siegfried.
Crandall gets paid out of here, generally.
Can I go back to revenue for a second? We kind of skipped that page, but what is the transit millage?
So we have two millages that are collected, the CCTA and the KCTA. The CCTA is for the bus line service, and that is regional, of which half of our precincts are included. Actually, I think it might,
It's less than half.
no, it's over half.
Oh, is it?
It's
Yeah.
8, I think it's 8 or 9.
It's 8
Oh.
precincts are included. And then the KCTA is a countywide millage for the paratransit service called Metro Connect.
Okay, but we don't get revenue for that.
No, we have to, well, we collect that, and then we would have to, what do you, I don't know what you're looking at.
We have it listed as revenue for 2025.
On
And
what
it's
page
not
are you
on
on?
Page one at the bottom.
It's not.
So
something that-
I didn't make any changes to anything. I also did not add any revenue numbers. So what's there,
I did not put there.
Okay, well, let's put a question mark and check into
It would
that.
be 0. If it's the KCTA and the CCTA, it is 0. We don't get
well,
revenue.
actually, that is a blue line, and I don't know why that would be there. So it's not election reimbursement or anything. I don't know why that's there. I haven't done any work in the revenue lines, so.
All right,
I got
well,
nothing.
I just put a question mark by it.
Okay, sorry. Thank you.
That's okay. I know you're concerned about revenue. I know where you're coming.
It's new. We've never had it before, and I didn't put
Well,
it there. What is
it's a blue line, so I don't know,
Yeah.
why it would be there.
Page 7 is our IT budget, and we're going to hold off on that one until John is back from vacation.
So back on page 6, though, that finance and legal, there's nothing for 2025?
Oh, we didn't put any budget numbers in there,
Well, we don't have Josh is supposed to provide
Okay.
us an estimate, and I think we'll probably, it's like next week or whenever he's in
Thanks
here
for
next.
catching that, Neil. So I'll pencil that in,
Okay.
and then we'll all take
Thank
a dollar bet at the end of the meeting and see how right Zach is. All right, moving forward to general township operations. Starting at the top with regard to salaries, so as we discussed before, so the front counter staff are serving multiple
I'm sorry, I did put that in. Everything was a lie. I put that transit millage in. It's not a transit millage reimbursement. It's because the transit millage is going to be on the ballot. I know that for next year, and that's going to be our transit millage election reimbursement. That's why it's a blue line under election.
Okay.
There you go. Sorry about that. I'm sorry.
I thought that was about the first thing that Sherry just said, and I was like, whoa.
I said was a lie. I'm sorry.
So the salaries in general township operations, actually, like we discussed before, there are several people who are serving different roles. And so some of those, because they're doing, serving the customers at the front counter, that's what the salary line item represents. Supplies, I think Dusty, there's a small increase there. And I think we need to, what we did in 2024 was instead of, for departments that were funded out of the general fund, instead of every 101 department having their own supply line, their own mileage line, we combined it all so that departments were using the same line. So this is something, supplies is an example of that. So multiple departments would use that supply line to buy things for their needs in the office. Claire, do you want to talk about the safe?
Yeah, I was going to say, to be a little bit more specific, the actual supplies line did not go up from 2024. It actually went down, but the addition of the safe in my office is what made it go up.
Yeah, but I could see a change in that too, because I know that I haven't pulled the numbers for what we've spent thus so far in the supply line to make sure that we're not shortcutting ourselves.
Well, and I asked that if any department who's now, their supply line's moving, if they had something in mind that they were intending to purchase next year, I asked them to put it in that blue line so
Okay.
that we know that,
We better.
so that we still have enough for general office supplies.
Yep.
But it's absolutely doable, and that's how that got into the blue line.
Add if necessary. I did find a couple today when I was going through with Ann.
She told me some, I updated those.
Petty cash, I think, Claire, that's a you. Is that sufficient to do the work of what happens to happen at the counter as far as funding those drawers?
Yeah, so petty cash is actually, for if, and we have credit cards to trying to eliminate that, and I think we can maybe drop that down, but if somebody runs to Lowe's and picks up some bolts or something for the park, they bring with a receipt, they get cash back, as
Oh.
opposed to having to go out and request a check and do a purchase order.
Right.
And things like that, that's what that's for.
Postage line, same as the supply lines, multiple departments. Boy, that's,
How did that go down by
Yeah,
so much
that's-
when rates went up?
yeah, that's wrong. That's gonna,
Yeah, it's really gonna be dependent on department needs, but we do have a couple like, assessing where, it'll be
out of their budget.
out of their, right, and it'll be everything all combined into
Same,
like
some
one
with Public
project.
Works.
So, and planning, I
So it's
believe
gonna be
as well.
scattered, postage is gonna be.
No, that'll be in
No,
this one,
it's
that'll
not-
be in this one.
Yeah, so I
So it
think we are
went
gonna
down
need
by
to revisit
10,000.
that.
So, yeah, I think it's spread out, because I think planning had postage
I
in
think
her
we need
budget
to
as well.
define what is actually in here too.
Actually, Clerk Farmer, if you
Other
could take that
postage.
300 out of petty cash with that drawer's already funded.
Right on,
Thank you.
it's gone.
Postage.
Financial fees. What happened there?
That's gone up double.
So,
Is that our investment company?
no. This was that request that, and actually this is, there's no reason for financial fees to be that high for next year. That line for this year was that request from the IRS that I made to the board.
Oh, right, okay.
I'm actually gonna go in here and put $1,000 for that line,
Thank you.
for what we would assume would be small financial fees,
Okay.
because this could also include any financial fees that we, have at, through the bank,
Okay.
too.
Vehicle maintenance isn't funded.
That's deactivated.
Is
He
it
wants-
deactivated?
Yep,
Okay.
that one's gonna be, our maintenance director would like, the 4 vehicle maintenance lines to be out of the 4 funds. We had 2 in the general fund. So instead of here, it's gonna be in cemetery, buildings and grounds. There'll be 1 in fire, parks and building. And just 1 in each fund. So that one's deactivated.
So, for public education, this saw an increase. Newsletter and postage, my guess is some of that will be related to postage, social media promotions. The tax bill inserts, I believe, is new. That's something we're gonna try to send information to people. General information, postcards and letters. Given the amount of work that we will be seeing and information that needs to go out regarding sewer expansion, roads, all that good stuff. Other postage, that would be,
Those two go together.
To go with the postcards and letters.
oh,
it would be
they're
one project,
connected.
yeah.
Okay. Software subscriptions, so we do subscribe to certain softwares that assist media and communications as well as other departments on doing public education. And then some additional, you all might remember, we bought a budget amendment forward to outfit media and communication with some necessary equipment. We funded a portion of that in our 2024 budget, and then we would be asking to fund the rest of that request in the 2025 budget. Fuel and grease.
That's exactly what that is.
Thank you for that good
Mileage.
description.
We should check that mileage line. I know new hire expenses. I don't know if you all know, but we have no open positions at the township right now. We are fully staffed. So, but if we stay the course, you can see we expended quite a bit in 2023. I believe that was part of when we did the search for the fire chief, right? There was that extra expense to hire an outside firm. We're not anticipating anything like that, so we have advertising, post-employment screening. Let's see, legal notices.
We don't have a number for that yet.
Gonna need a number for legal notices. Household hazardous waste. And this is something we need to make sure makes it in the newsletter. Kyle, I'm making myself a note, and then you're making yourself a note too. For those of you that aren't aware, we pay the county, I'm not gonna say partner, we pay the county so that our residences can go to the county and deposit their household hazardous waste, such as paint and any kind of chemicals and so it's at no charge to our residents when they go to the county, but we pay the county on behalf of the residents. So that's actually another example of a service that probably could be utilized more and lifted up. Education and dues, so we did wrap education and dues into one line item, and you see the clerk, I can tell, just based on this, asked the department heads to put in the blue line what they thought they were going to spend on education and dues. I'm a strong proponent of our staff participating in continuing education. So I anticipate we may see that number change, because I definitely, supervisor hasn't put anything in there, I mean, so that very well may change. Thanks to those that actually got that job done, though. Employee recognition, so that is monies that we've put in the budget that help recognize particularly the anniversary recognitions. Trash collection. As you all might remember, we made a significant overhaul to how we provide trash services, bulk trash services to the residents of the township. We definitely will lift that up again in the newsletter as people continue to get used to that program. And I think what's reflected here is perhaps a small increase just in general over the year prior, just anticipating
More use.
And more use, hopefully more use, that's the whole point. Let's see, border review, so looks like we don't anticipate.
We don't usually actually even budget anything in those.
So far this year, MTT appeals are way down.
Yeah.
Okay,
I think I'm sitting with 2, and one of them I'm settling out, so.
okay,
Yeah, and we do have, we didn't budget anything for this year, but we do have about $3,500 that will come to the board at end of year for those budget amendments, because we're just gonna take it, the
Move it.
accumulation through the whole year and just do one budget amendment for those, because we cannot anticipate what those will be.
Right.
And we used to bring them a lot more frequently, and it doesn't make sense. They're low enough amounts that we can just do it at the end of the year.
Next, we have our contracted services for general township operations, and that includes our ADP contracts. Looks like,
LKF is getting paid out of there this year.
oh, and we need to put LKF in the blue line.
I was gonna say, there's a lot of stuff missing. I mean, year-to-date, we're at 65,000 for 2024, so that needs to be significantly
Okay,
looked at.
look at this one. Okay, very good. Jim, did you do legal last time we were together? Did we get to you?
I can't remember.
I can't remember either. I meant to rewatch the board meeting and I
don't
didn't
believe
get
so.
to it.
It's really not very exciting, but I will tell you that legal fees have gone up a tick, a little bit. That's because we are being forced to pursue people who have not connected to sanitary sewer, and so we've had to bring legal action to compel that. That's the increase. Law library, in fact, went down a little bit because we were able to negotiate a better contract with LexisNexis versus West. West was going to take us up probably over 15,000 a year, and they rolled out their AI program, which I tested for 2 weeks and thought it was god-awful. So I asked LexisNexis to try theirs. It was much better, and they came in at basically the same price that we've been paying for West the year before, so we saved a little bit of money there. Contracted legal counsel, I'm anticipating, given the wrap-up of a lot of the ongoing litigation that's required outside counsel, to taper off. So that figure has gone down substantially. Other than that, everything else is just either been pulled out of our budget or as part of salary and payroll.
Those are like pre-COVID numbers.
They are.
What kind of capital outlay you guys got planned?
Zero.
Oh, wait, no, I
Zero.
can't read, man, I cannot read
It's
rows.
zero.
I'm looking at this and I'm reading capital outlay, 346,000.
No,
What is
and-
he doing?
1,000, wow. He's building a new law
I guess
library.
add me to the group of people that needs a ruler.
Kidding.
No,
The office, yeah.
that capital outlay that's also a deactivated number. If they needed it, we would just do it out of the general. operations.
I make.
Two
I'm
eyes,
making
one
some-
line.
I'm sure
I don't
we'll-
They're already deactivated. It's just not showing up on here that way for some reason.
Okay.
So I think this is an example of
The
the
ruler or
mileage
these
too. We
progressive?
have
Right.
0 for 25, is that because we're moving that 250 to
Yep.
the other one?
That's
And
correct.
supplies, and
Yep.
supplies.
Mileage and supplies and
Education and dues.
education and dues. That actually made it really simple for my perspective, my budget. And
Sierra went ahead and entered his numbers into the other blue lines. So it was much easier for Jim.
Good job.
It is intended to be
it did help.
time saver
It was a big
overall,
time saver.
so.
But we did provide you guys with estimates for,
Yeah.
you know,
Oh, no, I made her go, she went ahead and put them right down.
She did.
It was nice.
She's
It was
great.
very good. She did a good job.
they were high priced.
All right, Claire, you're page 12.
I have nothing. Am I on 12? I haven't switched back. Yeah, so this would be salaries for myself, my assistant, and I believe 10% of front desk.
Maybe 20. It's a
Maybe
portion of
20?
it, yeah.
But it doesn't seem right.
I,
think that number's quite low,
okay.
so we'd have to check on that. And then, of course, the safe that's on the other line.
Is in the
My
supplies.
entire, it's in supplies, and that's my whole budget.
Okay. Any questions for the treasurer and her budget? All 3 lines of it?
I do have a question related to treasury activity, not that particular part of the budget. Can you explain to me, like, what we're doing with the cash that backs, like, the HARC fund, for example? Like, where is the 350 or whatever that's in that fund? Is that all sitting in on FDIC savings
It will be in
account
carry
somewhere?
forward. from
Yes,
this
yes,
year.
so I was trying to, I'm like, well, it's all in the general fund.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, so it's all in banks, in CDs, in meter, in Michigan class,
Okay.
in ICS accounts, it's all invested.
Okay, because when I looked at the interest earned specifically for HARC, it seemed really low considering the principal balance and the fact that the expenditures are really like once a year probably out of there, or authorized once a year. And it seemed like we should be able to get closer to 5% than the whatever 2% we were getting there in a 12-month CD. So I don't know what I'm asking for, other than maybe a better understanding of what excess cash is invested in. And I don't know how that should be presented, but I'd like to understand.
We have an investment policy,
Yeah,
and it's 100%, sorry, Claire.
No, go ahead, you've been doing it all.
It is 100% the statutory duty of the treasurer. But we do have an investment policy, so maybe we could do a presentation on that.
that
or
would be
review
probably
of it.
helpful,
Yeah.
because
All right.
I just want to understand what kind of rates are we getting on our cash? That's really what I'm concerned about right now.
Majority right now should be around 5%. My sticking point on that, and I can get with Josh, who will be here on Thursday, is I don't know on the blue line items how he disperses
Sure.
our monthly interest.
That's fair, that's totally
So-
fair. And I just want to make sure that, yeah, I want to understand it, so. That was it.
All right, good. Any other questions for the treasurer? Okay. Moving along, assessing and tax records.
We could probably do that one.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that one. This one's pretty straightforward. So for those of you that may not remember or are newer, the assessing department its revenue is funded from 1% of the fees
On taxes.
on taxes. Okay.
I didn't realize you were asking me a question until I looked at you.
It's the 1% admin fee that everybody pays
So
on taxes.
essentially, the assessing department has its own source of revenue, okay? So it's treated a little bit differently than others. So you have your salary up there that would include the assessor and the full-time, assistant assessor, I forget. There we have the Board of Review salaries. So this is a board that Christine manages that meets 3 times a year. The Board of Review meets 3 times a year. Neil's served on the Board of Review before. So similar to Planning Commission, Zoning Board of Appeals, trustees, there's a stipend for the service on that board. Moving down, the assessing department has its own supply line because it has its own revenue source. Same for, we need to take out the internal legal fees on there.
Yep, it's
gone?
deactivated,
Okay.
yep.
Same for mileage, so we need to put $500 in her mileage line, please. For times when they don't use the Camry. And then moving down, so in legal notices, she spelled out for us quite clearly what she anticipates sending legal notices on and what the cost of that will be. She has her own education and dues. Same thing, she has her own revenue source, so it shows up in the assessing department. For contracted services, hold on.
Well, and while you're looking that up, I'll tell you, the amount this year is more because Christine goes to the international conference for assessors like every 2 or 3 years or something.
That is
in
correct,
this-
and she
yeah.
did not attend the conference in 2024,
Right.
because she's busy parenting a senior person and doing all that kind of stuff. Contracted services, why am I blanking? She uses contracted services.
I'll tell you. It is.
Yeah, thank you, is it in?
This is for property,
Descriptions and
Right.
for mapping,
Right.
sketchy.
well, and it's the, when you determine what a property is worth, that is called an appraisal. These are all for appraisals from Integra Realty.
Okay.
Thank you very much. This has been a fun word game night for me.
Everybody go home and do the crossword puzzle.
Right.
So I have a quick question, just a simple one.
I do too.
It just hit me when you said international conference, but are we paying for it to go internationally?
No.
Okay,
It's
Thank you.
just-
I just needed that clarification
You know
for
how
the
the United
record.
States does. International means Arizona. So,
Thank you.
Assessing actually started in Thailand. Many people don't know that.
So I have a,
little known fact.
I'm kidding, I'm kidding. That's why.
Just making sure, just making sure.
Go ahead, Claire.
I'll wait till you get done and then I'll jump in.
Oh, okay, and then you can see for capital outlay, this is assessing, BSNA contribution for the, computer software they use, Pivot Point is software, and change detection Eagle View. I believe that was the only capital outlay that's different in this budget, is that, they will be using, and I don't even know, Jim, do you know what Eagle View does?
that's for the.
I know what it
Apex.
does.
Oh, that's for the Apex. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
No, it just takes pictures from above. It's satellite
Oh,
imagery to
okay.
make sure that,
Yeah,
guys
it's
like
like
me are paying
with
the
their-
right tax rate when they build the
Yeah.
deck and stuff.
Like the Eagle View describes pretty
won't
much
prevent,
what
don't
it
worry.
does. So Claire, go ahead.
So I have a comment. I don't think we need to separate the supplies and the mileage. The definition of the admin fee is, well, not definition, but the purpose of the admin fee is to fund the treasurer's and the assessor's office
And the legal.
and some legal for postage, salaries, mailings, gas for driving around to do the and so I think we can still, it's not restricted or in any way. So I think we can still put it all in the salary and the mileage line for the general fund. Because that's where mine goes from, like, same with postage.
Well, it's restricted in the way you described it, because it is restricted.
It is restricted to those three departments, right?
But then why is mine not all separated?
I think that's a good question. If we ever have to account for the 1% admin fee, it is easiest, we can do it entirely out of the assessing department, and that would account for the whole 1%. Because we definitely, well, I mean, we can account for those expenditures 100% from her department. Every expenditure from her department can
Could
be
be
applied
applied
to
towards
the.
assessing.
Right, that's my
Yes,
point,
but
yeah.
you'd still be short
You'd still be-
200,000.
You would,
Well, and then that
And
pays
so-
for your salary and just a portion of yours, though.
correct.
Let's dig into that a little bit, though, and make sure that we're
Being consistent.
being consistent with how we're
Mm-hmm.
applying that admin
I
fee.
used to have my own postage line, and it was like, we don't need to, it's not restricted funding, let's just throw everything together.
Well, and if your 1% goes into the general fund, but it can't because it's restricted,
Correct.
so, all right,
Claire's right, you need to account for where that 1% goes.
okay. But it could 1% go for salaries or
Oh, absolutely.
the
No,
benefits.
so
that
like,
revenue
I can
does
just
go
go
in the
pull
general
their
fund.
whole budget and then your two salaries,
It
and
doesn't
I've
go
accounted
somewhere
for the whole
else. It goes into the
1%.
regular revenue GL.
But it's restricted on what departments can
It's
be.
not restricted funds.
Jim,
As far as like accounting, it's not restricted funding.
It wouldn't-
With Seavertans, with anybody.
Seavertans probably doesn't track it as a restricted fund, because it's not a fund, it's a revenue source that needs to be used for specific purposes. I don't know whether
Yeah, I
that
don't think-
satisfies
Josh.
Seavertans or not, but it's funds that are to be used for specific purposes, but it's not placed in a quote restricted fund. We just, if we were
Right,
held
so the
to
revenue
account-
can go into the regular GL.
if we were held to account, what we would do is say, here's what assessing costs, here's what our attorney costs, here's what the treasurer's office costs.
I started panicking. I'm like, I've been putting that money in the GL.
No, that's appropriate. It's the same way that we accepted ARPA dollars. ARPA dollars, we had to account for that later, right? But we can put it all in one spot, and then in the reporting, we accounted for it later.
Yeah, but it had its own fund within the bank too. That's why I was panicked for a second.
Right, but if we had to do any sort of reporting, and we're not required to do any reporting on the 1%, but what I'm telling you guys is that if I ever needed to, all I would do is run the assessing budget, I can account for all of those invoices, and I can pull in two other people's salaries, and that would account for the entire 1%.
Okay.
Right, so like, I'm not worried if we ever have to do that because of how we've budgeted.
Okay.
all right, good clarifying conversation, actually. Next, we'll go to elections. Clerk Farmer.
So next year is a non-election year for us, so we have at least one scheduled. And because there's no such thing as a non-election year. But next year would be a reprieve from early voting because there are no state or federal elections next year. But so I do have dollars budgeted for at least one election, and then, of course, all of the other dollars that we spend on a regular basis, just maintaining the voter registration database, the MasterCards, and fulfilling those statutory duties. That's what I budgeted next year.
I just have a quick question, because I don't understand. Under postage, it says ID cards. What
Those
does
are
that
voter
mean?
ID cards.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So every time we get a new registration, either by mail at the counter or through the Secretary of State, we have to, first of all, process that, make sure they're there, print a voter ID card, mail it to them, and then prepare a MasterCard and keep it on file. It's the only paper record we have to have other than ballots.
Can I ask a question about voter ID cards?
Yeah.
When I go to vote, they never want to see that.
No, it's really it's information for the voter. It's to let them know which districts they live in, which school districts, which state representative, your congressional district, that sort of thing, and of course, your voting location.
So things you should know if you're
It is a little
civically-minded
antiquated
anyway, right?
system, though. I mean, that definitely can be sent via email, I mean, probably not by state statute.
Right,
but
right.
It is a place where it is pretty antiquated, the way we're doing that.
Well, and it also makes voters think that they need it to vote, which they absolutely do not, because what you need is an ID to vote, or you sign an affidavit. It really is just information for the voter. Although we also have gotten requests from some people who can use it as proof of residency with their employer or whatever. They've used it, so.
And
That's not really any part of what we do.
It's also a good way to tell someone when their precinct has changed or moved or whatever, saying. or,
Yes, because that's
after
the other
census,
time we send it
When
out.
your congressional district has changed the numbers, letting people know that. But
And-
you don't need to bring it in.
That one
And we
actually
did
makes
do that.
sense, yes.
Yeah, we did do that. We had, when we adjusted precincts in 2018, or changed locations, we sent out ID cards to them for notification, and we also had to do a mass mailing to voters after the census.
Though I'm pretty sure I have every voter ID card that I've ever been issued for every address saved. Memory.
And you have this one line item as for elections. You don't intend to have four, right?
Say it again?
Election chairs times 4 elections.
Oh, yeah, sorry,
Yeah,
no, it's
we
okay.
can change that right
Yep.
now.
Do that.
I didn't know whether you're working your way up from the 1.
Is there
Yeah,
any,
just
is
in
there
case.
any chance, though, another election, so we've got. the
There
same-
is a chance of another election.
I mean, I'd rather overestimate than a little bit.
There is no chance of 4. If we have 4 elections next year, something terrible is going
But there
on.
is a chance possibly of 2.
There
I
is,
mean,
there is.
There is a chance of 2.
I think the year she predicted none, there were 2, maybe 3.
Any other questions regarding the elections budget? Okay, we cannot do insurance and bonds because I am certain Sarah is still working on those. And moving forward, we got through Public Works. Dun, 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 dun. Cemetery buildings and grounds. Dusty, do you want to try to tackle that?
Yeah,
And
we
we'll close our conversation on this draft budget.
Good subject.
Yeah, so, sorry,
Oh,
guys.
my apologies, yes, page 20.
So this part of the budget is usually done between myself and our maintenance director, because there's some overlap, especially with cemeteries. So, the blue lines are as is. We've decided to do a little more budgeting for the grass seed straw and veterans flags and make sure that we call that out specifically each year.
I thought we might describe this as cemetery supplies.
Well, it's not only cemetery supplies,
Okay.
but sometimes that's all the expenditure that
I'll just say,
actually
when I
comes
saw
out of there.
supplies, I thought pencils, papers, you
Right.
know what I mean, so.
Yeah, we can refine what it's called.
Building supplies, or, I don't know.
Yeah. And then here's the vehicle maintenance line that we saw from the 101-249. And he has already identified some things that will have to happen next year. you know, he knows he's gonna need plow truck tires, and so he puts that into to the blue line. And he's also really good about making sure that he puts in the percentages if it's split with another fund. So actually, that one, for truck tires, we won't need that. We won't need that one next year, so we'll reduce that.
When-
Yep. And then everything else is pretty straightforward until you get down to maintenance services. And that just sort of lists out the services that he plans on using for our township facility specifically. He calls out the fire stations within those budgets, but this is for the township office.
You know what I just thought of that's not in here is since we're talking cemetery, is the defibrillators aren't in here.
Oh, the AED.
AEDs aren't in here.
Do they need to
At
be
the
replaced next
cemeteries?
year?
We've identified at least a couple places where the AED for this facility is locked behind the door right
We need
now.
another one in here.
Yeah, this is-
So that would require somebody having a key, getting the AED.
So we need more, we
We
need
need
additional.
more,
Got it.
yeah, so that needs to go in here.
If you don't, you've got the cemetery lines.
Oh dear, we are dark
We
tonight.
also have Dr. Chapman, so we all feel very safe.
Hey Sherry, the other thing we might want to check with him is just that we're anticipating having a sewer bill next year, once we're connected to public sewer.
So, that was taken into consideration. He had actually put it in for this year originally, which is where, hold on, let me get down here.
And then it's just the same number, I see, from 2024 to 2025.
Right, so he budgeted 3,500 for this year, but, you know, we've only spent 1,000 because we're not hooked up to sewer yet.
Okay.
And so this was the same that's why it's
Okay.
the same number. And then, moving on to the capital outlay. I'll let you talk amongst yourselves here, but, he identified some, you know, additional work that he'll be doing around here. Like usual, we have the cemetery grounds maintenance, $20,000. That's what we use to remove trees and shrubs and bushes that have become overgrown in our cemeteries. Of course, asphalt maintenance for the parking lots. I have a cenotaph in there again for the
I
West
was
Cemetery.
surprised to see that.
Well, so we didn't do it this year because our local monument company was having a hard time in following through on the vision on this. So what we waited for was Melissa to go to a cemetery conference, and she did that last week. And she has some information about how we might fulfill that. So if you remember in our green cemetery, we do not allow markers, foundations, headstones, that sort of thing. The goal is to eventually have it overgrown with prairie grasses or other native plantings, and then there would be one memorial that would have the names of everyone who is buried in the green cemetery. And that's the whole effort of not putting anything that's not biodegradable in the ground in that area. So that's why it's back on there, because I just don't know if we can get it before the end of the year.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is there in case we don't. Now, if we can move forward on it this year, then we would just
Then
wipe it out of next year's budget.
One thing that I can say with certainty is the office carpet. So that's been in the budget for, I don't even know how long. $60,000 will not do the office carpet. And so, and based upon just kind of the general conditions of the interior of the office, I'm going to ask Greg to actually get a meaningful estimate on office carpet and then also painting the interior of the office too. It woefully needs it.
When are we predicting adding the outside offices?
Well, so this 60,000, I just, based on now having some experience with estimates and what you think they're gonna cost, and then they come in, that number will change. But I'd also like to consider painting the inside of the township offices. If we're gonna do carpet, we might as well paint.
Could I plead with the township to replace my carpet that was damaged during the water discharge in the spring?
Well, see, that's the thing, do your office and then that's a one-off and wouldn't do all, I mean, the carpet, I think the carpet that's in there now is no longer available. When I first started, one of the things we did was pick out carpet that we liked, and then that became no longer available like a month later. And so, anyway, if we're gonna keep rolling this office carpet forward, I mean, the condition of the lobby was brought to my attention. I didn't even notice how poorly that wallpaper is in there. I mean, it's peeling away from the wall. I mean, the carpet is just, it's lived its life. Let me just say, it's, so, I don't know, that's just my sentiment about the condition of the office overall.
Well, and then I know we also have some issues with the windows in the lobby and in some of the offices where it's
Right.
leaking and there's mold
So there
or
has to
mildew.
be windows too, because some of the reason why the office carpet hasn't gotten done is because many of those windows that are floor level, people are growing mold in their offices because it leaks through their.
Oh, I know, I get bugs in my office.
Okay,
all
so
over
you
my
know
carpet.
too.
But also in the main area, there's water damage, like up top where those windows are. Can we check with Greg and see if that's been repaired and not leaking anymore before we decide to paint everything?
Oh, my God.
Where's the leak at?
And the windows in the main in the main hall.
Up
There's
top.
windows up top that go around half of the
they're
circle, and there's like mold and
Okay, yeah, sure.
missing drywall and.
I just think that it's gonna be a number of years before we're gonna be able to do like a complete office overhaul. We need to address the decline of, the interior of the office, because there are some areas that are looking pretty shabby.
Well, and the outside, you guys can see here stucco repair consultation, so that's for some of the missing stucco even on the outside, so.
Right, and the fire department will have that same thing too. I happened to ask Greg if the maintenance director, if he'd gotten a quote, because he was doing some stuff for the fire department, and he's not yet, but it's on his list, so hopefully that will come soon. Or rather than later. So anyway, those are some changes for capital outlay that I hope to see in the 2025 budget for buildings.
You made reference to an outside office, what was that? Outside offices?
Outside the office, I meant
Oh, outside the office.
I meant the outside wall of the office building where there's, missing stucco.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of that missing stucco around the building, so. And, well, we haven't even gone, but anyway, so those are things Greg is looking into. We've then, let's see, insurance and bonds, cemeteries, buildings and grounds, we got through all, are there any questions on that or comments before we jettison on to something else?
I guess I'm going to make a comment here,
Sure.
because part of it has come up in this most recent discussion, but things like the maintenance facility, $350,000, has been there for how many years? 8 years, 10 years? You're talking about other things here that need to be done. I think if we haven't learned anything from, those folks on the Parks Committee who have seen the cost of a parking lot that went up dramatically over the course of a year, even though we thought we had enough money. We've got sewer costs now that have gone up dramatically. We need to stop sitting and hanging on to this money and spend it on stuff that needs to be done. Yes, we'd like to have a maintenance facility, but if we haven't figured out how to do a maintenance facility in 8 years, and meanwhile everything else is going up in cost and price and falling apart, we're not being good stewards of the township funds. And I really think that we need to seriously look at this. Yeah, it's a great idea, but if we have no way forward and we haven't figured it out, I think we need to start spending the money to take care of other things and get it off of this line item. That's my opinion.
Waterproofing windows,
There's lots of things, yeah. But it's not going to get any cheaper to do those things if we wait another year. So I'd like it to see us move on to attacking some of the many other things that have just been sitting around here getting worse. Thank you.
I can do that
Yeah,
myself.
no, that's a legit,
Absolutely.
so in 2023, Greg and I had several, maintenance director and I had several conversations about the maintenance building. What size it should be, where it could go on township property. So there were some line adjustments that needed to happen before we could even do a placement, like, so there were things, there were conversations that had to happen before we could even get to a place of, is this year to build the building, and will it cost more than the $350,000? So I don't want you to think it's just sat there doing nothing. And I think you'll see that come back later this year during particularly the next discussion around the fire station, where perhaps utilizing those funds to rehab the current fire station. Just an idea, it's not like, again, so there are ideas being floated about how we could meet the needs of the maintenance department, utilize what we currently have, and repurpose that funds to get them into a facility that they'd like. So I agree with what you're saying. I'm not going to pull it out just yet.
No, and I appreciate that, and I understand, and last year I felt the same way, oh, okay, we have an idea, we're working on stuff. But it sounds like this has been going on for a lot longer, but meanwhile, every year we come up with something else. You're gonna take the wallpaper off of a wall that's been leaking, you think it's just we're gonna paint over it? You probably have structural damage behind it, plaster or anything else, the wallboard probably all needs to be replaced. The longer we wait to address those things, it's gonna be even more expensive than what we think it's going to be. But the longer we wait to address some of these things, and it just seems silly for us to keep putting something down here if, for 300, if we're just doing the, evaluation phase or whatever, that's fine, keep that in there, because we know on a maintenance facility. I just think that we could be spending that money now to address things now and come back later when we actually have a plan, a proposal, and then decide how we're gonna fund it, that's all.
Yep, I gotcha. No, it's a fair statement. Anyone else? Okay, at this time, I'm going to close board discussion on the budget. We made really good progress. As promised, we will pick this back up. I took several notes. I think Dusty's made changes, and you'll see the next iteration at our September 14th board meeting, where we will once again reserve time to discuss the budget. Next, I would like to move to agenda item number 11, which is consideration of temporary certificate of occupancy. You'll find that on page 25 of your board packet. We have our planning director, Ms. DeForia, is going to present that item for us.
Hello again. What this is a new policy for your consideration to replace a policy that was adopted by resolution in 2019 by the Oshtemo Township Board and then the then functioning Southwest Michigan Building Authority, to allow for temporary occupancy in residential and commercial buildings when certain life safety standards are met, but they can't get everything done. Because this policy was originally adopted with Simba and they're no longer an organization, it's appropriate for this board to adopt this policy, and the language is just specific to Oshtemo Township, doesn't reference Simba anymore. The policy is pretty thorough. It outlines the step-by-step process for an applicant seeking temporary certificate of occupancy, what they have to do. We ran this by fire, building, and legal before getting it in the draft that is before you this evening. So we would ask that this temporary certificate of occupancy policy be adopted.
Thank you, Ms. Sikora. Do we have anyone in the public wishing to speak on agenda item number 11 specifically? Seeing no raised hands, I will close public comment. And are there any questions from the board? If there are no questions for the board, are we ready for a motion?
I move to approve the temporary certificate of occupancy policy.
Support.
A motion by Clerk Farmer and support by Trustee Sikora. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have a new temporary certificate of occupancy.
Thank you.
Next, we'll move to item number 12, which is being presented by our zoning administrator, Leanna, today. And this is about, hold on, let me get to the page. Apologies. This is on page 30 of your packet.
Could I interrupt you just, sorry, real quickly?
Sure.
In the packet under the last item, it has a listing of everyone who how everyone voted on it?
It's, no.
No,
Sorry,
that was
go
just-
ahead.
We converted it
Okay.
to a motion. We show how people voted.
Yeah.
But we did that so we didn't have to have a roll call vote for every policy we adopted.
Super, thank you.
We tried to save the board a little bit of time.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt you.
No?
That's all right. No, it's good. Good question. Thank you, Ms. Harris. So now Ms. Harris here is going to present possibility for a resolution of Oshtemo becoming a redevelopment-ready community.
Thank you. So what you have before you is a redevelopment-ready communities resolution. In order for the planning department to start the process, the RRC process, we need the signed resolution from the board. Once you receive this, we will be considered engaged in the process. Once we receive that, we'd receive a community snapshot of all of our processes and how and whether they're aligned with the best practices that the Michigan Economic Development Corporation has outlined. We'd also receive direct funding assistance from the MEDC and would also receive access to their online resource library, which would help us provide us with examples of how other communities were able to use their practices and the program, and ultimately hope that it will provide for a more consistent process with the development and strengthen development-related partnerships in the township. So we ask that you adopt the Redevelopment Ready Communities Resolution.
Thank you, Ms. Harris. Do you have any questions from the board for Ms. Harris concerning this request for a resolution? I have one question. How will this, adopting this resolution and moving this forward, how will this elevate our opportunities as a community to work with the state on larger projects? What is it, this, I guess what I'm saying is this opens barriers that the township has not been able to participate in.
Yeah, so there are 6 steps in it. They begin by evaluating our plans and the engagement that we do with the community. It also would evaluate our zoning ordinance and our development review process. But it would also help with identifying priority development and redevelopment sites around the township, marketability. It would help the developers. It would identify these properties for developers or for redevelopment. Hopefully making it more, like I said, consistent, fair, and a clearer process ultimately. Step-by-step process hopefully would be clarified on that.
No, that's good. It's really exciting, and it opens up the door for us to receive grant funding in a whole different way that's not been available to us. So going through this process is a big deal for us, I think.
Thank you.
Sure.
Does this cost us any money to participate?
Does it cost us any money? Are there any fees for the township?
No, it's not my understanding.
We were hoping it was coming the other way.
That was, I was gonna ask, what did we, you know?
It's just staff time. That's what this resolution's
Right.
saying, that you're committed to starting the process. And not every community makes it all the way through.
We can do it.
Sweat equity.
Any other questions? Okay. At this time, I will open up anyone wishing to make public comment on this item specifically, resolution for redevelopment-ready communities. Do we have, I see no one in front of me in the audience. Do we have anyone in the Zoom? Raised hands? Okay. Then I will close public comment on this, and we move into board discussion.
I move to adopt a resolution authorizing Oshtemo Charter Township to participate in the Michigan Economic Development Corporation Redevelopment Ready Communities Program.
Support.
This is a roll call vote.
Trustee Cole?
Yes.
Trustee Ford?
Yes.
Trustee Chapman?
Yes.
Trustee Sikora?
Yes.
I vote yes. Treasurer Bushka?
Yes.
And Supervisor Bell.
Yes.
The resolution is adopted 7-0.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Very excited. Really good step for us. Okay, next, we will move to, if the board would join me in moving forward from the consent agenda, item E, the DDA bylaw amendments. I'd like to do that first since planning director's with us. You will find those on page, the memo begins on page 14. Do you want to, go ahead with your
Yeah.
questions
Well,
first?
Yeah, so my only question about it, I don't actually have any issue with it, was why on May or April 23rd, the Friends of the Parks, that has a fraction of the budget of the DDA, had to come and make a presentation to the board to update their bylaws, whereas this one is just in the consent agenda. I mean, what are our criteria for putting things on the consent agenda? Why do we have some, what is, I guess, what is the criteria? Because it seems totally unequitable, I guess, unequal, I should say.
So that's really a
There.
question for me,
I-
not Jody.
No, I didn't say I had a question for Jody. I just asked that be removed because I have a question about it. And that is, why is it here versus not having the presentation like the Friends of the Parks did?
So I'll answer that question. I mean, the DDA has operated under a firmly set, has been operating as a group with a set of bylaws in a more uniform manner than Friends of the Park has. And so part of generating the Friends of the Park bylaws and formalizing them was to actually, I think, create a stronger framework for that committee. And I think it's done that. So it wasn't, I'm sorry that it felt unequitable to you. I think the DDA's been around longer and is more familiar than perhaps the work of the Friends of the Park. So that was, that was the thought process.
I have no questions for you, planning director. It just seemed like, what criteria do we use to decide what goes on the consent agenda? Because more than one occasion, I've asked for things to be taken off the consent agenda, and I'm kind of curious as to what, I guess there's just, I'm not sure we have a consensus of here of what would be, what things should appear on the consent agenda. And I understand that whoever puts the agenda together has that, option to do that, and then I have the option to ask for things to come off.
Sure.
But when I saw something like this, I'm like, well, didn't seem to make sense. Why was one versus the other? And then things like large expenditures, which is the other item, seemed like it should not have been on the consent agenda. So that's all I have to say, and I we can move on to the next item.
Sure. Well, we need to do something
Well,
with
you
this
know, I
one.
would be, I can move to approve the, oh, wait, hang on.
I have
Oh.
a question too. So it
Sure.
was not even a question, it's just a statement that I asked legal about earlier and got a little bit more of an understanding of the legalities of the DDA, but I do want to point out that this revision is removed, can potentially, it's not holding funds within the township anymore. If they want to pull all their funds, they can.
The revision doesn't?
Yes, it does. Because it's excluded what was in there before.
Where do you find that at?
I have to find it again. And I did go to legal, just to clarify, I did go to legal on when is this something that they can do if they choose to do, and he said absolutely that is under the bylaws that they're operating under.
Yeah, they are an extension of the township, but they operate independently. The main oversight of this board is their budget.
But that's how they could already operate.
Correct.
Right, that's not a change.
Right. Nothing, I didn't see anything in the proposed amendments that was inconsistent with the new Public Act 57 of
It was a
2018.
removal of something that was already written and not.
It was redlined?
Yes, it's, yes.
Well, I mean, while we look that up. Oh, all right, Jody, you can probably.
Well, I'm gonna look for it also, I'm not sure exactly what
I
section.
wasn't sure that.
There was some redlining because things were moved around, I mean,
Right.
maybe it was eliminated because it was merged.
Are we referring to maybe the role of the treasurer that was taken out but then added earlier in the policy?
It was something to do with the treasurer, and then the later red line said that such accounts or such funds will be kept within the township, and it was white, and it was redlined.
Shall be deposited with the township treasurer?
Correct. It was on page 18. Paragraph 7, that dealt with the treasurer. Paragraph now regarding the secretary treasurer says they have the authority to approve all vouchers for the expenditure of funds of the authority, providing the quote or contract was approved by the board. Secretary treasurer may delegate the authority to the director, shall also preside over all meetings when both the chairperson and the vice chairperson are unavailable. Again, I saw nothing in the changes that was inconsistent with the new Public Act. But it was on page 18, top paragraph.
Here.
Board shall have the
Yes.
power,
Which fund shall be deposited with township treasurer? That's gone.
yeah.
It's no longer there. I just wanted you to be aware.
And it is within their authority
The
to handle their
treasurer
own funds.
shall approve all vouchers for expenditures of the funds of the authority,
That's
which,
their treasurer, not me.
Well, right.
which shall be deposited with the township treasurer. Well, hold on, now it just got muddy.
I wanted to point it out.
But they
because
always have the
past
authority to do that.
conversations have-
That's what I was trying to
Correct.
say, they've always had the authority to do that.
Not if it's not approved in here, is my understanding.
Your bylaws attempted to restrict that. Do I think that was consistent with state statute? No. Do I think the bylaws now are consistent with state statute? Yes.
Right, it's a choice to keep the dollars here. I would say, I can't even anticipate that any of those dollars would be moved out of here because that would make it extremely difficult for me to pay their bills for them. Right? I mean, like.
I'm impartial as to whether they do or don't. Obviously, it's easier. I'm just saying that this policy no longer requires they do. That's all I'm saying.
Well,
But
and
Jim
I-
is saying that according to state statute.
We couldn't have required them to do that anyway, not
We couldn't have required them to
really.
do that anyway.
Yeah, right. It makes sense the way it operates currently.
Yeah.
Right, because we heavily provide them staff.
But if they wanted to, like, create their own set of books, have their treasurer do the actual heavy lifting of issuing all the checks, theoretically, they are a semi-autonomous body. They're a separate legal entity.
Much like Friends of the Park.
Correct.
But you're saying if we were to require them to put them here, that would be in violation of the state law?
I don't think it would be consistent with state law.
Not consistent.
Yeah. So I don't see any restriction in the statute. I pulled the statute today and looked at it with regard to their respective powers and their authority. And while you set their budget for them, they have the right to have their own director, they have the right to have their own treasurer, they have the right to have their own secretary and handle their own financial matters if they choose.
And that really wasn't the intent, to grab power back. These bylaws were 20 years old, and they reflected things that did need to be updated with the Public Act, including, I mean, the number of members didn't change in the act, but us saying that there shall be 12, when really there could be 8 to 12. It's much easier to have a full
12
board.
has always been unattainable for the whole
Yeah,
time.
it's just easier to have a full board if you don't have some unrealistic number.
And I don't see a body right now that's interested in running it on their own. I mean,
But they could, I mean.
getting quorum can be a
Yeah.
challenge, so,
Well, I'm just
but they
curious
could.
if it prevents, like what we did with Atlantic. If they don't have the funds here, can they utilize us still as a channel to get loan funding?
I would say yes, because they're still an extension of the township, right?
They are.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's all. Either way, I'm impartial. I just wanted you to know.
Yeah, no, it's a good conversation.
I mean, the more interesting piece to me was the ability for them to have their own director, because that has been something that has been discussed in the past, but they never really had the funding for it. But that's another one. I don't think that their budget has ever properly reflected how much of the township staff time is spent working on DDA things. So I think it would be interesting for them to have their own director if they ever move, if
But
they
it would
ever
need-
chose to move in
But it
that
would
direction.
need to be a working director, not just a director in title. I mean, it would need to be a working director.
I think that, I'm not sure that that applies to anything that I said. Are we, what's the contention here? I don't understand.
I think a director would be anything they needed it to be. 2 hours a week, 10 hours a week, 20 hours a week.
Sounds
and
good to
not-
me.
And not.
I don't have to babysit
time.
mowers and get damage fixed on the community center building
No kidding.
when the mower hits it. What do I know about that? I'm a geographer.
I mean, the follow-through on that request of actually paying a director would be a budgetary request, which we do have full control over.
That's true.
I mean, so we could check that then, right?
Right.
Like, make sure that, yeah, okay, I see. But I thought that was more interesting than probably the other one. It would be, that idea, if they would actually move forward with that, would be
Yeah.
new.
Right
for
now, we have to make sure we have quorum every meeting, so.
Right.
And it often happens that day to
Yeah.
make sure, so. I don't see anybody running to do anything differently from the DDA board as far as the township's participation in the operation of the entity.
Well, I did notice the part about the director, which certainly, Texas Township or somebody just advertised to hire one?
Oh, yeah, I did see that, part-time. Comstock has a part-time DDA director. They don't have a tax capture, so the township general fund supplements the DDA budget.
But as a possibility, and just for all of us better understanding the DDA, I think this was a good discussion, considering that's not what I brought it up for. But I'm glad everybody participated, and we all learned something about it too, so it was,
Yes.
I don't know.
You pulled things before I was gonna pull things, the
Okay.
same things,
Same
so
thing,
we're on
okay.
the same page.
Did we get this?
Okay,
So, yeah,
unless there's something else, I can make a motion to approve the DDA bylaws as amended by the DDA board on July 18, 2024. Oh, that wasn't actually the motion, or, yeah, it says motion, sorry. Yes,
You good?
what I said.
Second.
is there a second?
That was me, yeah, Ford.
Okay.
What else did we-
So a motion by Sikora, support by Ford.
Yep.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries 7-0. Thanks, Jody. Next, we have our budget amendments, and we will start on page 9. So I don't know, do we want to go through these one at a time?
Did you have, Neil pulled it, I only had one I was gonna pull the same item, but there was one specific budget amendment that I was interested in. I don't know about.
Well, I'll defer to you on this for now, since
Okay.
I did such a great job on the last one.
You did, you knocked it out of the park. So I'm looking at the budget amendment for unused 2024 fire engine final payment, that
Yep.
memo. You know, the memo reads interesting to me. It refers to budgeted 2025 dollars, which is interesting because I believe we're in the middle of that process as we speak. So while it might imply that we have previously agreed to fund those things, I don't know that that's fully accurate. I am a little concerned about this rush to spend money that otherwise would just go back into reserve, and then we would elect to choose something to do with it in 2025. And then when I start to look at that, the ask about what it is that we're trying to spend this money on, and while some of them are, I see us doing in 2025, there are others that are capital assets of sorts, tooling, basically, that I don't understand what they are. And there's no way I'm going to approve a budget request tonight without anybody here to speak to these pieces of equipment. That is why I pulled it and why I'll vote no on this amendment. I'm also open to persuasion, but that's it.
So the chief is not with us as he is not feeling well. I think that, so I think you went through these for us at our last meeting.
That's fine. I think the last meeting, we all settled on, I'm not really ready to approve a fire budget in any capacity until a lot of stuff happens. So I guess I'm still riding that wave of feeling right now, and I'm not able to commit to such an expenditure at this time.
Okay, but just to be clear, I mean, just so that the final payment of $288,345 lives in the 2024 budget. We know that that truck is not going to be delivered until 2025, and so the ask, which he went through these last week, but I get it's a lot of money, so we can bring it back. But the ask is that the payment that was going to be made in 2024 be reallocated in 2024 to do the projects that are listed in the expenditures listed below.
I understand. I think there's a lot of scrutiny in those line items that has yet to be completed. So more than half, I think, of that stuff I have concerns about and need more information on, so. I think that's where we're at. I mean, I don't know. People can present budgets to me all day long. That doesn't mean I've approved or agreed tacitly or otherwise to anything that's come before me. I get to vote on it at some point. And I've got real problems with where we're at in the fire department at this moment in time.
So I don't disagree with that. I did notice that some of these items were put on the 2025 budget that, yes, we looked at, but we haven't approved, and so it's like,
They come off of.
I don't want to say it was like shifty, but it's like, if we may not get them there, let's put them into here, and maybe they'll get missed and approved, and that's kind of how I feel right now.
And I just, transparency is an important thing, and something this large, I don't think ever should be a consent agreement. That's just a basic. I'm not going to give a comment on any of the specific things, but if transparency is something we are big on, large expenditures should never be consent, period, ever.
You mean new expenditures?
yes.
On budget, okay.
Yeah. I mean, the money that's being requested to be expended was budgeted for something else. And so the request is to just spend that money on something different. But, so I get that. It's not a concern that we can't afford it. I don't know why we're buying it. And I can't do this like this in a memo, just like Michael said. It's inappropriate.
Okay. Others? Then I think we are going to have to take these one at a time.
Well, I was gonna say, are there other amendments to be discussed? Or was that was the one?
That was mine.
That was the one I was concerned about. To be honest, I really could use a better education on what they're going to do. It sounds like a massive overhaul of the Knox box system. And it just says, oh, we're gonna spend $1,300 a year on software and that's gonna fix it. So what does this mean? Are we having like RFID? Like, are we getting new keys? What is it?
Well, and if you want that to be brought back, but I could certainly tell you that I am aware of that expenditure. The Knox boxes that they currently have are failing, and that is a real problem for the other buildings in our community that are
Totally
not
believe
township
it.
owned.
Understand.
So they're so old, the new type that you go to, it has the software attached to it, there is that
Sure.
expenditure. So there's a totally different process for the Knox boxes than it ever was before.
Right,
It's
and I only
unfamiliar to
understand the
us.
old version, which was like, special universal key and yay, right?
Yeah.
So if we're doing something drastically different and it's expensive like this, I'd like to better understand the ask. We're getting a little spendy in fire, and I think we've reached a point where we require a little bit additional accountability and oversight, and then it is what it is.
So we don't have to vote on either of those, and then you could just take them back to him and he
Yeah, we
could
can
bring
table
back?
them and we can bring it back.
And then we could just have one motion for the Chime Street Sanitary Sewer Project and the Sewer Fund Education and Dues. If the board would like to move those both.
Well, I think given,
yeah,
they're
give me-
probably open for discussion, right? I mean, those are significant costs.
The only one that I wanted to not do tonight was the original one we discussed regarding the fire engine payment. I wanted more information about the Knox box. I'm expressing my displeasure in the quality of the memo, and that's it. Other than that, I'm okay with the rest of the amendments.
Including the Knox box?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So we could move those three together.
Yes.
Again, just the sewer one, I'm fully in support of it. It's just, again, it's a very large expense, and I just want to make sure that it has its due attention, because I do have some questions about it. So if that could be separate, I would appreciate that.
Or you can ask him right now. She's here.
Okay. And it's a simple question. It really, where'd she go? Okay, it's a simple question. How many houses, how many are included on this? Because I tried to look, and maybe with these new progressive lenses, I didn't see that. So I just wanted to see the number of houses that would be involved with this expansion.
Sure. I kind of included it in the estimate, so it wasn't in the memo, but it is 12 existing buildings, and then there would be a lead placed for one vacant lot that would be buildable in the future. It would actually also be connecting a 14th building, but that would be part of the school's work on their project, so.
And just to be clear, the reason for doing this is because it's a significant opportunity to spread the cost between ourselves and KPS, correct? With the work
Not
that
only
they're
for the
doing.
cost, I mean, that is definitely a benefit of the partnership. They were looking at going down Erie, actually, and connecting to 9th Street. And it was my opinion as the Public Works Director that since that would serve nobody but them, that was not in the best interest of the sewer system. So having all the users pay for that long-term, when it only provided service to one building and the route was similar in length, and we knew we needed it for other benefits. So I really think it hits a lot of other principles related to public sewer and engineering, but obviously being able to share the cost with somebody makes it an ideal time.
Well, I want to just say thank you. This is exactly what we should be doing for our community and partnering and improving our community through partnerships, so thank you.
Sure. Ask me more questions about this one. I'm just kidding.
So, I can try to make a motion here. I move to approve all presented budget amendment requests except for the budget amendment in the memo subjected budget amendment for unused 2024 fire engine final payment.
Okay, I'll second that.
Okay, sorry, I was really working it.
Motion by Ford, second by Farmer. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
opposed? Motion carries 7-0. And I will let the chief know that he will need to be present and more clarification on his memo if he desires to bring this request forward again.
Yeah, particularly for me on those last 4 kind of tools, capital asset type things. That's what I'm really interested in understanding, what those are, why we're buying them.
Yeah, it's good, it's fine.
Yep.
Yeah, no, it's going good. Okay, so next we move on to agenda item number 13, and at this time, I have no members of the public before us now in the audience. Do we have any members on Zoom? Mr. Marr, now is your time to speak.
Hello, thank you so much, Madam Chair, or Supervisor, as the case may be. And I do apologize for interrupting earlier. I didn't know the protocol. I am new to Oshtemo. I moved to Oshtemo a year and a half ago from West Baghdad, Virginia. I'll use a little accent, but I am from the Midwest, and my father has lived in Paw Paw, Michigan for 40 years. I have been engaged in government affairs at the state level, legislative level, and I just want to say I appreciate the openness and that you all are conducting your business. Certainly our wonderful Google machine will show you that I represent West Virginia Association of County Officials, and then I also represent the tobacco industry. That aside, I moved to Michigan a year and a half ago, and by happenstance located in Oshtemo. And I'm new to this arena and trying to learn what local government does and or does not do. Being a lobbyist, government affairs professional for the Association of Counties has afforded me an opportunity to learn quite a bit about Dillon's Law. And the only authority you all have at a local level, and I'm still trying to figure this all out about charter townships and how government works in Michigan. But I'm curious as a cat to bring up the rescue. Hey, if anybody needs help with rescue, give me a call. I have 4 cats. Foster failure. But I'm in Ann Arbor tonight because I have a home care business, and it's called Village Caregiving, and I'm not using this to promote them, but it's just, I am curious as a cat, and I want to be part of my community. I was part of my community in West Virginia because I was a quote-unquote lobbyist, government affairs professional, and working with the state legislature. I started in 1995 as a staff person in the West Virginia legislature, a 60-day legislature. As life afforded me opportunities, I had the opportunity to work the Michigan legislature because I worked for Lorillard Tobacco Company. And Michigan is a full-time state legislature. But it's the only reason that I'm still on this tonight. And it's because I'm a nerd, okay? And I do apologize for taking up your all's time. But so many good things, and to see the openness, the transparency of local government operations is great. I'm watching on Zoom, but I'm also watching on the other platform, please forgive me, publicmedianet.org, okay? And it's disparate because I can watch you on video. I can't watch you on video on Zoom.
Right.
I can't raise my hand on Zoom, and that's okay, because I would have raised my hand. I would have been annoying. So I do appreciate this opportunity to communicate with you all. I want to be part of the community. I want to contribute. I'm still trying to ascertain what it is that Oshtemo Charter Township does for me as a taxpayer. I pay taxes in Oshtemo Charter Township based on where I live. My mailing address is Kalamazoo, 49009. you all can find out exactly where I live, and I'll give you my address. I won't do it here on a public forum because it's recorded. And I'm not going to offend anyone because you have a wonderful council and supervisor, Bill. I appreciate what you have to do in your position. I worked in the House Finance Committee and West Virginia Legislature, West Bogog, Virginia Legislature. And so many things, transparency. I can offer suggestions, and I'm not going to take up all the time right now. I just want to say I want to be part of my community, and I'm part of the Oshtemo community. So
We appreciate
please,
that feedback, Mr. Marr. We do
Thank
have a 4-minute public comment, and
I'm done. Thank
no,
you.
and so I welcome you to call the office or email, and there's always room for people that want to jump in. I'd be happy to answer any questions. I'm certain the clerk or the treasurer myself. Welcome to Oshtemo in Michigan, and
Thank you.
you know, thanks for your feedback.
Thank you.
We live in a great community.
And go to oshtemo.org and fill out an election inspector application.
Thank you, clerk. Thank you, clerk. Well done. Well spoken. I got it.
There's a
No.
boards and committee form too, so.
I understand. I would like to be participatory, and you have a wonderful, wonderful board. I'll say we because I'm a taxpayer, and you all represent me, and this is awesome. And I see the diverse perspectives as I have, and I worked in so many state legislatures. I worked in over 15 state legislatures and in my days, and you all are doing it right. And thank you. Thank you. I want to participate. That's it. I'm out. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marr. Okay, at this time, seeing none others, I will close public comment, and we'll move into board and committee updates. I'll start with trustee Cole, please. Trustee Chapman.
Nothing additional. I think that my friend on Parks and Rec may have additional updates, but we had a lively conversation, lively meeting with Parks and Rec, and yeah, nothing additional.
Thanks for being here tonight. Thanks to all for being here tonight.
But especially you, Michael.
Yeah, but Mr. Chapman had his hands full today. Clerk Farmer?
Give me a minute.
Okay, and then I'll go down here to trustee Ford.
All right, Planning Commission met last Thursday. We are now taking up the renewable energy ordinance business. We provided some direction to staff around that. It's kind of an interesting thing, the way the state has quasi preempted local government by enabling the Michigan Public Service Commission to authorize these renewable energy projects, storage, harvesting, whatnot. But there's an interesting gray area for the township to maybe make its own policy and then also be incentivized to the tune of up to like $5,000 per kilowatt hour of power storage or generation. So there's some opportunity there for the township to maybe build one of these and see if we can convince the developers to go through us instead of the MPSC. So we're working on it and providing some direction to staff, and we should hopefully have an update for you guys soon enough. I don't know how soon. Jim's busy. But it's interesting, so I thought I'd share that with you. We also completed a master plan planning activity, put stickers on the map. It was cool.
Yay!
And that was it.
Thank you, trustee Ford.
You're
Trustee
welcome.
Sakura?
Yes, thank you. Last Friday, I attended a constituent coffee with Representative Christine Morris, who was here at the township. And with the construction going on outside, I took that opportunity to share a few comments about the need for increased funding for sewer and water infrastructure projects. I also wanted to say that I am very disappointed in MDOT and their traffic control outside here. The speed limit is way too high. There's no signs indicating where the driveways are for people who want to make a turn into the library or the park. 8th Street should just be closed during to turns from West Main during this time because people are driving 55 miles an hour down the road and then somebody turns on their turn signal, and people are slamming on their brakes behind it because there's no turn lane anymore. I just hope that no one gets hurt from what seems to be a lack of common sense in their system that they have out there. Otherwise, Friends of the Parks, we met last week, and we're continuing our efforts for Family Fun at Drake Farmstead event. That's going to be on Saturday, September the 21st from 1 to 4. We're having live children's music from Ben Jammin from 1 to 2. Fresh Fruit Fairy will bring their bike blender so you can ride the bike and make a fresh Michigan fruit smoothie from 2 to 3. There will be other family activities like a scavenger hunt, pumpkin crafts, and of course, nature trails. And everyone can also enjoy a free self-guided tour through the historic Drake House, which will be, which will be open. It's a free self-guided tour. It will be staffed by members of the Historical Society, though. So definitely visit our Oshtemo Friends of the Parks Facebook page for more information. And the Friends of the Parks is also organizing a sponsor and volunteer recognition luncheon that will be held on October the 2nd out at the Drake Farmstead. And wish everyone a relaxing end of August and a long Labor Day weekend. Thank you.
Did you need anyone to drive go-karts?
No,
Okay.
no, we are keeping it
switched
very
it up.
simple. We are not having any.
You know,
go-karts.
the line for go-kart drivers was a mile long, and then.
No, well, not for me, I'm at the front of
No,
that
no.
line. I have been promised. Promises have been made, and they will be followed through
There's
on.
no go-karts planned. If there were, you would have been first on the list.
Thank you.
Oh, golf
Oh, golf cart, not go-karts, not go-karts. I can't fit in a go-kart, that's insane, the golf cart. Anyway, so just to clarify, those smoothies are only available for 1 hour on that day.
Making it the smoothie. Yes,
Okay.
You have to make your own smoothie.
Got it.
Thank you, trustee Sikora. Treasurer Bushka?
I have nothing.
Nothing. Clerk Farmer?
All right. You guys were so antsy, I couldn't provide this update last meeting. I just wanted to follow up. The last time I talked about elections, the County Board of Canvassers had not finished their canvass, and I told you I was going to wait until that was over. Our voter turnout was just over 25%, which is 10% less than it was during the 2020 August primary, which I find interesting. I expect voter turnout to be 65% or higher for November, which is pretty consistent. If we have really good voter turnout, it would be higher than that, but it's right about 65% in the November general. So that's what we're anticipating. So even at 25%, just so you guys know, to sort of put an idea of numbers to that, we issued 4,696 ballots for the August election. In addition to the voters who came in person, which I was going to give you that exact number, but the state reporting system isn't being helpful to me today. And then also, of course, early voting. And again, we expect much higher turnout in November. We have sent out the final round of applications for absentee ballots. These are from the permanent absentee ballot list, which will go away after this election, and it is being replaced by the permanent ballot list. And so we're sending out a postcard as well. That was mailed out today, or I think, today's not Monday. It was mailed out Monday. As a reminder to those folks who are still on the permanent absentee list, that if they would like to continue receiving an absentee ballot, they will either have to apply every single election, and we will not be sending the application, or they can join the permanent list, either online or through a single application. And that's our constitutional right now, is that you fill out one application, and that's the only one you ever have to fill out to receive ballots every election. So that's what we're really going to go into next year. We will realize the effects of that more likely during the gubernatorial election year in 2026. In addition to that, I want to, at our last ZBA meeting, we had 2 variance requests that came before the ZBA. And one of them was especially interesting because it was something that this board had just updated a couple years ago. And it was how we have requirements for businesses to put in non-motorized pathways. And this was a variance request because it was a property on 8th Street, and it was between two bridges in a portion where there are no residential areas. It did not make sense for the non-motorized to go in there, to have them pay for it, to even have them put it into escrow to be paid for later, because it would be so many years before even we have a plan to put non-motorized there, that whatever they put in escrow wouldn't cover the cost of that non-motorized, whatever that would be in the future. And so I bring that up to the board because it's, you know, we use the ZBA sometimes as a bellwether of our ordinances, because if our ordinances are written well, we hopefully wouldn't receive very many variance requests outside of those that include a real hardship or, you know, some issue that they're going through. And this wasn't that, other than it was in the wrong place, and we have this blanket policy that says they have to do it, and so now they have to come in for a variance. And so my request was to have the planning commission take a look at that, and maybe write it in a way where if we have no non-motorized plan, then why would we have staff go through the process of requiring that and then them coming back for a variance? I feel like we could just write it better so that we don't have those variances. And that's all I have for updates.
Thank you.
See, that's why I couldn't do it last meeting, because everybody was like, we gotta get out of here.
I'm gonna start my updates. Our meetings in September are the 10th and the 24th. On the 10th, we will finish running through most of the remainder of the budgets that we haven't touched on yet. The 24th, we probably will do HR, and then we'll revisit Public Works and then the sewer budget. So those will be coming back then. What I'd like this body to get some feedback on is I think we have a good handle on things, but I also want to be cautious, is I'd like to get some feedback on holding a special meeting Tuesday, October 1st, to hit the budget one more time in its completion. At our October 8th meeting, after that meeting, that is when it will be posted to the public for consideration. So I want to give us one more opportunity for tweaks, questions, whatever, before we bring it to the Township Board the 8th, and then it will go to the public. So, I guess I don't want to put people on the spot right this moment. Just, you're going to get an email, and we're going to take a straw poll and see who could be available the first to tie the bow, hopefully. So I just mentioned the budget will be made public on October 8th. And then we will vote to finalize the budget. The public hearing on the 2025 budget will be at our November 12th meeting. So these are important dates to make sure that we have the board present. I think that's enough from me right now. Lots going on at the supervisor, in my office, all around. Dusty Claire and I have 2 meetings, possibly a third in September, to work together to hammer out the final numbers, come to
They're
agreement.
3-hour meetings, you guys. It's 3 hours is what they've scheduled. 3 hours.
2 3-hour meetings. But if we can
It's a
end
good thing.
early.
It's a good thing.
We can end. So, and those are intended to really take your feedback on what we've seen, incorporate or heard, incorporate that in the budget, and also hammer through the numbers in a collaborative manner. That way, when we bring something back
For 3 hours.
it will at least been talked through
Thoroughly.
thoroughly. So with that, that's the end of my updates, and we've exhausted our agenda, and this meeting is adjourned.
Well, I was off.